include them as young adults in training and not just kids. Hey everybody, welcome to today's Jeff Heilman Project. So glad to have you tuned on to YouTube and all of the various platforms. What we're going to be talking about today is how we've been able to integrate having a family. For those of you who don't know, we have 7 children. There's a 20-year gap. And so I joke and I always say, well, if you have a kid, we probably have one within that age range.
If you're between the ages of 20 and 60, we've probably got kids your kids' age.
Exactly. As entrepreneurs who have been operating businesses on the side, having side hustles, or for Jeff being in startups throughout his career, very much in the entrepreneurial mindset, how do successfully we include the children, hopefully make sure that they don't feel like they're being forgotten, successfully navigate, not neglecting our family as we're building businesses, companies, and being entrepreneurs. So do you have any first takes on that?
I'd almost want to lean into Andrew a little bit and see what he feels like he remembers the most about being a little guy growing up. I mean, Andrew, you just turned 19. You're the producer of this podcast for almost 3 years now. And you've been homeschooled, and I've pretty much been home the entire time. He was born in 2006, and I've been working from home since 2004. So I don't think you've ever known me to go, unless I was on the road for business. You've never known me to go into an office. So I'd love to know your thoughts. Like, what do you remember, Andrew, about being a little guy with mom and dad around all the time?
Yeah, we were able to do family vacations to other family and extended family, and it was a lot growing up. Like, even though you were at home and mom was at home, you guys were always pretty stressed about everything coming down from work. So it wasn't like, and that's something that you guys learned and gotten better at, is the coming down and forgetting work and leaving it out of your subconscious and out of your habit of your like state of being. And that's what I'd say for anybody who's trying to learn how to be a better parent, and they live a really busy, work-heavy lifestyle, is find relaxation methods, meditation, prayer, whatever you have to do to come down from the craziness of work, so that it doesn't get shot through your kids when you're just trying to eat.
Yeah, and it was definitely stressful. I mean, there was stress associated with being poor for the first probably 9 years that we were married, living on $2,000 a month. Some people would laugh and scoff at that and say, how could you possibly consider that to be poor? Because there's people that have far less than that. And that's true. But I mean, like, housing alone was half of that. And that's, that wasn't always take-home pay. Sometimes that was gross pay before taxes. So there wasn't a lot of extra, and there were a lot of extra needs for things that we went without. But then you start making money, and then there's the fear of, oh my God, I'm making all this money now, and how do we keep it coming in, and what if it goes away? And then you adjust your lifestyle up in order to make sure and get rid of all the cash that's coming in.
One of our successful practices in making sure that we are strengthened enough in order to give to our family, because at the end of the day, that's really what it's about in the attempt to not neglect your family, is you have to have reserved something in your tank so that you can give to your family. And one of the practices that we have, I believe, successfully begun to practice throughout the 29 years of being married, is we did get to a point to where we would allow, there's a rule that 1 hour after anybody, if it's dad's been working at his job and, like, say he's done at 5, then for an hour from 5 to 6, you don't talk to dad, you don't interrupt dad, you don't bug dad, and you give dad an hour. It's like a coming down zone. It's like a decompression hour. And so we've practiced that even with the kids as they got older. So, maybe Jeffrey's our oldest. if he's been at work until 3 p.m. even, then as a mom, I don't get on him to start doing chores or start contributing until an hour has passed. But we all understand, okay, your hour is up. Like you've been given the grace, you've been given the time to do nothing for an hour. You could be on your phone, you could take a nap, you could do whatever you want. Mom's not going to ask you to pick up what you forgot to pick up before you went to work. 1 hour to be able to make the transition. But then as soon as that hour's up, then it's right back, in essence, it's right back to adulting. It's right back to getting to be at work. I think a couple of podcasts ago, we talked about the temperature, like being able to successfully negotiate. Actually, that wasn't on the podcast. We were at dinner the other day, and maybe you could talk about your chart that you drew for Leslie and Tim about like when you can feel when the kids need to do more work or when they need to do more relaxing. You had your variable, you had your little plot.
Yeah, it's the McHale, and Andrew can put a link in for the book, but it's McHale something on the book called Flow.
It was really good, just about being able to, I call it a thermostat, like moms if kids are getting I noticed younger, while you're drawing that out, I noticed younger that when they would get nippy at each other and argue, I'd have one of two ways it could go. They either need more rest, which means we need to go get an ice cream or go play, or they need more work. And like they need to go start putting toys away or clean up the yard or something. But there tends to be this moment of disagreeableness, and then being able to successfully decipher, like, is it more playtime that because they're tired and they need more playtime that they're getting on each other, or is it because they're bored and they need a project to do? Then I will bring them a project to do. And so kind of throughout the day, being able to successfully monitor the vibe and see what's required. And you had that great graph that you showed the other day at dinner, and I think that the people that are listening are definitely going to benefit from it.
Almost done drawing it.
Yeah. He's quickly writing it down.
So effectively you have a balance, a blend between how complex your life is to manage and how much skill you have in managing that complexity. And the goal is to move in and out of, if this is the camera, which camera do we want, Andrew? This camera? If the ideal situation is where your skill and the complexity of your life is equal, it's kind of in this flow state in here. That's flow state.
Can you
That's
describe
where
it for the people
excited.
Listening to the podcast, what you drew?
For the people listening, you basically have an x-axis and a y-axis, and the x-axis is skill and the y-axis is complexity. And when you're pretty balanced between those two, you're going to experience flow state. It's where the difficulty level is equal to your skill minus a little bit. So you got a little more skill than you need, but not a whole lot more. It's challenging, interesting, exciting work, and you start losing track of time. There's all types of research that Andrew Huberman has done around what happens to the dopamine levels in your blood when you're in that flow state. But it's challenging. You're interested. You're fully aroused and awake and paying attention to what you're doing. But it's not labor intensive. It's not struggle. You're not grinding.
If you're a musician, it's called being in the pocket.
Being in the pocket or being in the zone.
Of sports, it's the same.
And when you have more complexity than your skill level, that's where you start to get anxiety and then like full burnout, exhaustion, stress. And when you have less interest, less things going on, it starts to become a little lackadaisical, maybe apathetic, and then all the way into just pure boredom. And so that's the context for this portion of our podcast today. And I'm trying to remember the context of how you wanted that.
The reason why I brought it up is as far as success, getting to how we not neglect our family and build businesses. And part of the not neglecting is, in my opinion, the opposite of neglecting is including, is being able to pay attention to and make them feel included. And part of that feeling included is being able to tune into the boredom to, like that scale of, if I'm paying attention because I don't want to neglect my family, then I'm receptive to the vibe of I'm receptive to the feelings of the household. And so we work really diligently to run a business, to have our business hours, dedicated business hours, take that hour transition, and then walk into, okay, how's the atmosphere? What's it feeling like? Are kids feeling anxious and things are too complex and, like you said, too stressful, like Andrew indicated, at least early on in his childhood or throughout his childhood, he was able to pick up on the stress level. Well, if that's anxious, then the kids are feeling anxious according to your scale, then things are just too complex. And what we need to do is we need to, do a game night or do something more like we need to have a movie or we need to go out to ice cream. With the kids growing up, and Andrew will probably remember, is we did jump in the car a lot and go drive through and go get ice cream at McDonald's or go to Baskin Robbins, and we would get a scoop each or do something because we could tell that things were on the complex side of the scale. For me, I would notice the boredom side of the scale in my desire to not neglect the children like throughout the day, because we did homeschool and there was a lot of open time for being bored. And then we would go to do so then you got to add a little complexity to that, and you got to bring some projects that they could do, a garden or like going for a walk or going down. We lived near a trail and they could go down to the creek with their older brothers or play a board game or chess. We got into chess periodically, and I'm a builder, so I remember having Jeffrey out and, hanging pictures and building things and like adding some complexity to the boredom. So I think really if we're talking about, like we're talking today on the podcast about how do you not neglect children, how do you run businesses, first and foremost, if you're going to have a family and run a business, you have to have business hours, dedicated time where the kids understand mommy and daddy are working, you understand mommy and daddy are working, and then have those hours scheduled downtime to where you under no circumstances allow your work to come into that time. Maybe you could talk a little bit about date days, because I know as the kids were younger and as you were pretty heavy into building businesses, you had designated date days.
Yeah, I've still got it in calendar in the weekends, and I have not been as good about it. But just the one-on-one time with each kid, try to do it once a month. When you have 7 kids and you have 4 weeks in a month, you might do 1 or 2 kids a weekend.
Yeah.
In order to get it all in. But I remember date days with Andrew. Date days with each of the kids.
Well, you're really good about like, and that's another part of just having the verbiage in your mind, having the story in your mind. Like, if I can invite my kid to do this with me, I will. And so like, you're pretty good about getting coffee and being like, oh, Madeline, our daughter, oh, she's home. Hey, you want to go get like, including like, if I can invite a kid to come with me, then I will. Grocery store shopping, I'll kind of go, gosh, I haven't seen Osh leave the house in a couple days. Like, hey, Osh, you want to come grocery shopping with me? And he's usually like, yeah, sure. So
anything to get out of the house.
Anything to get out of the house. But to be able to have the mindset of these kids are with us. You work from home, I work from home. They are homeschooled. They're let's do life together. And there were many cases as they were growing up to where you'd have a business trip, like your company would send you to San Diego or something, and we would be like, hey, you know what? Instead of flying, why don't we drive as a family? We'll stay in the hotel with you. I'll hit the pool with the kids while they're little, and you do your work stuff, and we're gonna just do as much together as we possibly can. And that becomes another successful way of making sure that the kids don't feel neglected as we're building businesses. Take your kids on ride-alongs with you. Take your kids, if you got to go to if you own a boutique and you need to go to the downtown to go do fashion to pick up your deliveries, then bring the kids with you. Let them see what you're doing, and include them as young adults in training and not just kids. I think you were really good about that, Jeff, is helping other people see and having us have that mindset of these are young adults in training. They're not just little kids who don't get respect or don't get to participate in life. They're young adults and they're in training and they're learning, and they don't, we're definitely not a family that says better seen and not heard, or like just go away and, you go to your room and we go to our rooms and we're just all doing our own thing. It kind of it's come to be more like that now that they get older, just because they're like in their 20s and they're hanging out in their room doing their stuff. But we're always, hey, it's dinner time. Let's go sit down at the table. Let's all sit down at the table. Hey, it's lunchtime, or hey, it's breakfast. We typically have breakfast together and dinner together, but more often than not dinner. So
I remember reading an Augmendino book years ago, and he had lost his family. He went down and started drinking at the Quarter Bar, got into alcoholism, or alcoholism got into him, and drinking too much. Then he lost his job. Then he lost his house. Then he lost his wife and kids. And he said one of the lessons that he'd learned was that you always want to make spending time with your family be the reward for all your hard work. And we've really tried to honor that and make spending time together that be the thing. Condition the nervous system to say that spending time with my family is my reward for the hard work. And I think if you do that, it just helps the family hold more value. Spending family time together becomes more valuable. I think date days are an important part of it. I think part of it too is just our family culture, what we call high fives in the hallway. We don't walk past anybody in our house, which happens all day, every day. Bunch of people, 9 people living in 2,000 square feet. We don't walk past each other, at least I don't, without acknowledging the other person on the other end of that exchange. I'll run my fingers through their kids' hair, or I'll give them a hug or a high five or fist bump, or, sometimes I'll just stop and give them a hug, kiss them on the head, kiss them on the lips, letting the kids know that they're part of a tribe. And I'm home and Nessie will come up and visit, or Teddy will come and give me a hug, or just sit on my lap for not that long, a minute, 2 minutes. It doesn't take that much to just reconnect with the family. But you and I go to breakfast. We put the kids in the back and we'd go for a drive. You'd read a book, or we'd go on vacation, or we go on a road trip, or we go to a family member, or we just go for a drive just to have the kids contained and go do something to get away from the work that we were doing.
I remember listening to Caleb when the kids were growing up, and one of the DJs was talking about the reality, since it was a Christian radio station, the reality of you never know when it's your last goodbye. Like life's short or whatever, it's unpredictable. We don't know when our last goodbye is going to be. And so they were talking about how most people don't even give eye contact when you say goodbye. Like you're just, there's not a really, you'll say goodbye, or you'll just, do the pinky wave as you're just rushing out the door. And it really impressed upon me. It really impressed upon us and our family, because I did a lot of drop-offs. Like I dropped Joseph off to go to his diving or something like that. And then we began to say, okay, bye contact, and so bye contact meant we would look at each other and lock eyes and say bye. And then that became the thing that every time that Joe and I would say goodbye, or every time a kid and I, when I would drop them off somewhere, I'd say, hey, bye contact, make sure that we get each other's eyes as we're saying goodbye, because it's so important to not rush into not rush to anything, or just take for granted that we're going to see each other again and that everything's going to be great. And I'm not saying that I'm not forelearning anything or expecting bad things to happen, but it just became a really good practice, and it became something really funny that we would say, hey, bye contact, you know, like look at me. I want you to feel like I see you, and I want to feel like you see me, and we're going to say goodbye and have it be a good experience. It's the same as don't go to bed mad. You've heard us talk about that on the podcast. You know, what are some successful tips for not neglecting your family, not feeling neglected? Don't go to bed mad. As you're passing in the hallway, give them a high five or acknowledgement that they're there. Lock eye contact as you're saying goodbye, and make sure that everything's good and copacetic before you break and go do your next thing. Have that hour transition time. Allow each other, give each other the grace to come down from their workday and recognize that they are making a transition, that there's a transition time. And feel the vibe and be aware of the atmosphere of, does the family need to rest? When was the last family vacation you had? When was the last time you got to go away and be together and go for a hike or go for a picnic or play a board game or something? Or maybe you've been doing too much loafing around and it's time to sow a garden or rake some leaves or build a fence or do something together as a family. But there's always opportunity to be included and include your whole family and to overcome from that neglecting or that neglected feeling.
Yeah. And Jessica and I everybody's going to do stuff that they want to do in life. And I think where trouble comes in is where you're taking action and it's contrary to your value, your basic beliefs and values. And Jessica and I just always valued our kids. We just love our kids. We love spending time with our kids. We love raising our kids. We love educating our kids. We love learning with our kids. We love traveling with our kids. We love reading books to our kids. We love watching Bluey. We watched 8 minutes of Bluey yesterday, the one with the pool.
The pool, that's
the
what
dad
it's called.
forgets
The
all
pool,
the stuff.
yeah. Moms are boring.
Moms do this. Sometimes the boring things are important too, is the message on that one. But I sat and watched 8 minutes of Bluey in the middle of a work day. Jessica said, "You got 8 minutes to watch the next Bluey episode," and it's like,
he was crying. He was crying by the end of the episode.
It was good.
It was so good.
Yeah,
I love that show.
Dads definitely forget the good stuff when it's time to go to the pool and bring your floaties and stuff. So.
And lastly, as we close out today, do you remember Jeff growing up when Madeline would go, "Dad, are we a together family? Are we a broken family?" And we would ask her, "Madeline, are we a together family or a broken family?" And she'd go,
say, "We're a
together family."
That's right.
So I told her, I laughed. I said, "Well, if we all got matching tattoos one day, we should all get together family written on it."
Yeah, it's the together family.
It's the together family. So we're praying for you guys that you feel like you're a together family, and that if there's any way that we can help you, or if you want to talk in the comment section about how you felt the most included and not neglected growing up and what your family did, we'd love to hear it, love to read about it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in, liking, sharing, all of those awesome things that you do to keep the Jeff Heilman Project alive and going. We appreciate you.
Glad that you could be with us, and tune in next time when we talk about what's our next topic. We don't know. We'll have to find out.
The producer feeds us, and we've been producing that. Do you have any idea, Andrew, what our next topic's about?
I have a bunch of them queued up.
Yeah,
awesome.
Queued up. All right.
So it's going to be good, whatever it is. Love you guys.
Thanks
for catching us, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.